Hi everyone, this is Total War Therapy and today I'm gonna try this new format. Thanks to the application Tier Maker, I will share with you my own ranking of the Greenskins units after I played several campaigns, even with new units introduced with the last DLC, Omens of Destruction. Before you say that, yes, I already know that Legend of Total War already made a video like that, but in my case I will show you the criteria I follow for making this ranking. And you will see that they are quite different from the criteria followed by Legend of Total War to make its own ranking. The first criteria, and this one is shared with Legend of Total War, is the quality price. So, this unit is good or bad, but how much I'm actually pay for that? For this price, is worthy or not? The second criteria is the cost opportunity, and I can tell you that this is slightly different from the way Legend of Total War rate a unit. Cost opportunity means that I will not rate a unit only for its overall stats, strength and price, but I will consider also if there are other units that can fill the same role in the same way or in different way. For example, if there will be a single unit of anti-large infantry in this roster, its rating will be higher because I will consider that it's the only unit that will fill that role in all the Greenskins army. The third criteria, and the one that probably differs the most from the way Legend of Total War rate its units, is the micromanagement. I mean, I will take into consideration how much micromanagement is needed for a unit to be effective. For example, if there is a unit that is strong mostly for its ability, its ranking will be lower, because I will take into consideration that to make it effective, I have to put a bigger effort. The first category we'll talk about is the light infantry, the most expendable and mid-shield one. At the beginning they were just 2 units, but after one of the last patch, the generic goblin have been split into 2 different units. So now we have the goblin with spears that are more effective against large units because they have the anti-large bonus, the charge reflection and so on. The swords and shield goblin that are basically most effective against other infantry, even if less defensive against large, and the night goblins that they have slightly better stats, poison effect, but they have less armor. Now, before the patch I would have put the generic goblin just at the B tier, because they are not a very strong units, but actually as a cheap, very easy to recruit unit in the early campaign, they are quite good and effective. But after this split, I would have preferred to put just on the B tier the goblin with the spears and the goblin with sword in the Chaos War Shrine section that, in my idea, is the worst. I mean, these are the kind of unit you just don't recruit in your campaign. This is because in your early campaign you just need a very defensive unit. I mean, you have many ways to deal damage with the Greenskins, so in this case you just need a very defensive unit against large to defend your flanks and even your front, or in case your artillery pieces and everything, and this better stats at melee against other infantry is just not useful because you have other option for that. Now let's talk about the night goblins. Even if they have less armor than the generic goblin, they have the stalk ability. That is an ability quite useful and effective in many situations, and in addition to that, their stats can be boosted by the night goblin lord. So overall for me is a A tier unit, because given their price that is very low, you can still build a full goblin army even in the middle and late campaign, and all the price that you are basically not wasting on building your front line you can put on more damage dealers like trolls, monsters and so on. There is actually a variant of the Night Goblins, and this is the Night Goblins Fanatics. That is just the same unit with this active ability with 3 uses called the Spinning Looms. This is an actually very strong breath effect that, as I say, requires micromanagement, and that's why, compared to what Legend of Total War did, I prefer to put them in the lower tier, because even if this ability is actually strong against other enemy infantry that are approaching, it requires this micromanagement, and if all the front line of your enemy is approaching and you have to use one by one this breath effect, it can be quite annoying and you're actually paying for that. So I prefer to have a unit less expensive but I can actually be stuck there and do this job, compared to this version with the stronger ability that, I need to put more effort and more money for the upkeep. Now let's move to the stronger part of the melee infantry of the Greenskins, the orcs. The first ones are the orcs boys. Even in this case, after the last patch, 2 categories. In this case I will put the orc boys with swords and shield on the C tier, because compared to the goblin with the swords and shield, they are actually effective. They are a good front line. They can absorb a lot of damage even if they lack in some way of leadership. And the spearmen of orcs, I will put them in the same tier as the goblin with the spear. This is because even them, they can actually do their job quite well, but I don't feel to put them in the A tier, because even if they are quite unique, because they are an actually good anti-large infantry, they are not that strong, and in the late campaign they start to suffer a lot, and I would prefer to use other kinds of orcs, or even for the same price, other units like trolls and so on. Sorry, but I forgot the goblin stalkers basically, and yeah, I forgot them because I hate them. For me are C tier units. I would put them on the last tier, but in very few occasions they can be effective. But as I said, if you consider overall the Greenskins roster, there are better options for that price. They have an anti-infantry bonus, they are armor piercing, but they have a very low defense, even if they have a good charge. But even if, they're basically made to hit artillery piece or missile infantry unit from the back, to stalk behind, maybe hide in the forest, uses some smoke to hide more. But at the same time, when another melee unit will engage them in combat, maybe a cavalry of unit will come back to take them down. They will just go away very easily, very fast. So I try to use them a lot in my campaigns, but they fail in any role. That's why for me they are just a C tier. Now let's talk about the orc big guns. Biguns, yes. Legend of Total War put them in the lesser tier, but I think they actually are a little stronger than we think. They have this anti-infantry damage, but they don't have shields like the orc boys. So yeah, I'd not suggest to put them as a front line, but as a support unit on the second line or at the back of your front line. The black orcs are amazing. They are immune to psychology, and they have both an ability. In the case of the black orc with shield, they have an ability that make them tougher, that increase their defense at the expense of the melee attack. In the case instead of the black orcs with great weapons, they can have an increase in their armor piercing damage, attack, weapon strength, and so on. And both are very strong. The black orc with shield, they're very strong as a front line. In the late campaign, you can just put an entire front of them, and it will be just indestructible, even compared to other infantry with the same price, with the same tier and level. They perform very good, and when you activate their abilities, they are just indestructible. And the black orc with great weapons, they're actually more a support unit that you can use to protect your flanks or your back, or to address some monsters when they are approaching your front line. At that job, they are so damnly effective. They are better than probably most of the other monstrous units in this roster, if it's not for the mass and for the less agility. Now let's talk about the cavalry of the Greenskins. They have the goblin option. In this case, they have the chariot of wolves, the wolves both with the archers and without archers, with the spearmen kinda, and then the spider's rider. The main point about them is that they are very cheap. They are basically the same price of their infantry counterpart. That's why even if they are not that strong, they deserve a higher tier. First, the archers. They can be quite annoying and useful in many situations. They are very fast compared to other skirmish cavalry light units of other rosters. That's why even if I don't use them a lot in the game, when I use them they actually do their job. The version with the spears, I feel to put it in the C tier, because even if they are effective, probably even in the last tier. I mean, even if they have better melee stats, you don't engage them in combat. Or just if there are missile units, but in that case you can use the bowmen, the archers or goblins on wolves. So yeah, it's a unit that just don't recruit, because I have these that I used for the same role, but they have the missile power as well, so fairly better. The Goblin Chariot, the Goblin Wolf Chariot for me are kind of the middle situation, because they are actually very fast and they deal a little of damage with the missile. They are strong as a chariot, but at the same time I just don't feel to recruit that much, because they have a bigger price than another unit we will talk later. The other and last units of Goblin with the cavalry is the Spider Goblin. This is another unit that is very cheap, but at the same time I don't feel to have so many uses. I mean, probably in all these roles the Goblin with the bows are the best ones. So these are just with less number but the poison effect. But yeah, at the end they will not deal this damage. They will just slow down the units approaching your front line, or you can use them as a stalk unit, as a vanguard. But yeah, for all of that is just better the wolf riders with the bow. So I prefer to put them here. And I was wrong. There is actually another version of the spiders with I mean, not bows, just lance. In this case for me they're just the car wash shrine level units, because they don't offer this big increase in melee stats to justify not having a bow. Now let's talk briefly about the Snowtling pump wagons. That there are 3 versions. I hope I put them in the right order. The first one, no, maybe no. Okay, the first one is the normal Snowtling pump wagon, and for me this is a overpowered unit. I will explain you why. They are very cheap. You can recruit it with I don't remember if the first or second level of just the main building of the settlements, and they are so cheap and they deal such a big anti-infantry damage when they charge. They are slow, but yeah, for their price they are amazing. I literally love them. The other Snowtling pump wagons are different from some stats. There is the one with the FAPAs that is actually good, but in this case you require a building and there is an increase in the charge bonus, and yeah, probably all the stats. They are Strider as well, so very good for the terrain, and that's why for me they are A-tier units, because for a very cheap price you have these units that doesn't care about the terrain. If they're going down, they're going up, and at the same time they offer a good charge bonus for a little price against even a little stronger melee infantry. Yes, they are not very good if they have to engage in melee or if they are followed by other cavalry, but overall I really suggest to have a couple of these units. The last one is with the spiky rollers, and in this case I think they deserve a C tier. Now maybe, yeah, C. No, probably a Chaos War Shrine tier. This is because I normally don't recruit them. They have a less charge bonus, they lose the Strider compared to the Flappas version, and they have this increase in melee stats, weapon strength, and they have more armor piercing damage. They have also an ability that decrease the armor, but you just cannot use them in that way. I mean, they're supposed to be tankier, but you cannot use this unit as a tank, so just useless. If you want to use the Snowtling pump wagon to help and support your your front line, or even, you know, to charge a missile, enemy unit, and so on. This one, the normal version and the version with flappers, are the best choice. These are the normal archers goblin that I will just put them here in the C tier, because you actually recruit them when in the very early campaign, when you have no other option, no other buildings. They don't actually deal damage, but yeah, they can be annoying, and to build a very early campaign army, you probably need a couple of them just to take down some other very weak missile units, to distract cavalry and so on. But once you move, you can start to use the Goblin Fanatics with the Night Goblins with bows. They are very strong because they have stalk ability, so they are easy to not be detected from the enemy, even if you put outside your formation. They have actually not that good damage, but for their price, for their usage, and they are probably the best archers in the Greenskins roster, they can be quite effective. I mean, they fill your role not in the best way, but the only one that can do it. And as I said in my criteria, this is an important thing for me. And even if they have less armor compared to the generic version, they are archers, so you don't actually care that much. There is then the Goblin Fanatics, Night Goblins Fanatic version of the archers, with this ability I told you before, that it's very strong if you engage in melee, but if you are in the second line, they are just useless. That's why we'll put in the not recruiting area of this tier maker. At the end, there are the Orc Boys Bowmen. I will put them in the B tier because I think they're kind of between, of course, price-wise. They have better missile power than the Goblin, the Night Goblins, but at the same time, they have very poor accuracy. They are stronger in melee, but if you have to use them just if you know that your enemy can more easily enter your front line or from the back and hit them, probably they are stronger than Night Goblins. But if you have to use them as a second missile line, it just use them to have them stronger. And even if they have a better missile strength, they have this very poor accuracy that ruin everything. Now let's talk about the Orc Cavalry and chariots. There are 3 units in this case. The normal Orc Boys that I don't use them a lot in the game, but they're an actually good cavalry, shielded. It can deal very easily against missile units and so on. That's why I feel to put them in the B tier. Yeah, as I said, I don't actually use them a lot, but they kind of fill their role, so it's very good. You know, maybe a C tier. And no, B tier, because yeah, for their role they are actually quite unique. Then we have the Orc Boys with the big guns, the big guns orcs. They have an anti-large attack, and even in this case I want to put them in the B tier because they can be an actually very good, even overall in the game, anti-large cavalry. They are quite strong as a flanker to defend your army from other cavalry, monsters, beasts, and I use them a lot. I mean, they are my perfect choice for Orc Boys riders, and they're just bigger. You have to pay a bigger price than the normal boys, but price-wise I think they are in the same tier. And then there are the Chariots of Orc that actually I found them very useless every time I try to use them. Now let's talk about the artillery pieces of this roster. And first of all, the Goblin Bolt Thrower. I actually have many doubts about the strength of these units, but at the end they are better than I expected. I can tell you that I teared down a Marienburg class with them, and they are quite unique for this thing. I mean, there is not another unit in this roster that can effectively put down a Marienburg class. So they are stronger than you can expect, but yeah, only against very particular armies units. Then we have the Rock Lobbers Catapult, and I feel to put them in the A tier. They have a good price, they are very cheap, and they are recruitable with a very low tier building, so I would suggest to get a couple of them in the early middle campaign, even because you need them if you want the range superiority against another faction. So if you're playing against a faction that doesn't have all this missile power, even if they are not that strong compared to other artillery pieces of other faction, if this other faction have no artillery pieces, they can give you a big advantage. Then we have the Doom Divers. In this case, I prefer to put them in the B tier because you are paying more than the catapults for just a little bigger missile strength and less splash explosive damage, so they will hit less units but better. They're actually good against cavalry, even some monsters, but yeah, for their price and their armor piercing value and so on, and I mean they are quite accurate if this is what you're looking for. Now let's talk about Squigs. There are three kinds of Squigs now in the game, and the first of that is the Squigs Herds. Actually, for me, they are C tier units. They are very cheap, even a B tier units. They are very cheap, and yeah, it's the kind. I think in all this roster, they are the most expendable unit. You have just to throw them against an artillery piece. You can summon them, yeah, against an artillery piece, against the missile units, and they will tear them down very easily. Of course, they are weak against everything else, but and they have the rampage that it's not the best passive ability of this game, but yeah, they do their job, and for the price I can suggest you in the early campaign to use them. Then we have the Squig Hoppers. That is basically a cavalry Squig, immune to psychology with no rampage, armor piercing damage, anti-infantry, and they're very good. I feel to put them in the A tier. You have to be careful because they don't win most of the engagement against other cavalry beasts and so on. But if you use them wisely, they can give you some benefits. So be very careful. But yeah, in the early campaign, if you're building a Goblin Squig army, they're a good option. The Monger Squig, this is a very weird unit. I made an entire video about them, and even them I would put in the A tier. A tier because even if they are explosive, and no, it's right, B tier, no A tier. Because yeah, they are explosive, so they explode and they hit your units too, and is not good. They are a support unit. I would not suggest to use them as a flanker, but when they engage against an infantry, if it's not that strong, they will tear it down very easily, and I love to use them. I honestly love to use them. You have to be careful for the rampage, because they will rampage. So yeah, they require a little of micromanagement, but they're very funny to use, definitely. So B tier is good. Then we have the Colossal Squig. The Colossal Squig, for me, it's a overpowered unit. I already explained that in another video why I have such a big consideration of that. He's fast, he has a big mass, a big charge, and yeah, it's just the jolly of your army that can move around everywhere. The rampage ability, it's bad, but if you have a Night Goblin boss around, it's not a problem because there is an ability to calm it down, and yeah, it's very useful. There are even these flows are nothing compared to the use you can do it in the battlefield. There are other monsters, but they are not that fast. This is yeah, the Better Call Saul of this army, and yeah, if I can put one in any of my armies, I will do it. Now let's talk about the remaining monsters of this roster. There are the Trolls. The Trolls, even if Legend of Total War disagree, I will put in the A tier, because they have a very little price, but they have regeneration, and as a support unit that can just protect the rear of your front line and then attack when there will be the engagement, they're very strong. I mean, they make your front line wins even if they have no better stats than your enemy, and I like them a lot. Then there are the River Trolls. They are the most defensive. kind of trolls in this roster. They have regeneration, they have some debuffs for the enemy units, so they are a perfect support unit. The last kind of troll is the stone troll. They are good as a flankers, but in this case you can have other option, or yeah, I mean, probably okay. If you use them as a flankers, they are definitely A tier, because yeah, they can protect very well, deal a lot of armor piercing damage. They are amazing against cavalry, and they have some spells and missile resistance. So down there are the spiders, the Arachnarok spider and Arachnarok spiders with flinger. The first one I will put it as a C tier. First, because the Arachnarok spiders with flinger is better. I don't like this unit for one main point, is that its mass, its charge are actually very weird. If it gets stuck against even a very low tier infantry, it will just remain there. It will be very hard to make it move. It's very good against the cavalry and against other kind of monsters, against character as well. He has a strider, so no problem for the speed on any terrain. And there are this basically missile mount over it. Sorry, I'm losing my voice. Missile mount over it that decrease the values of the stats of your enemy because there are poison effect and so on. But yeah, overall for that price, for that tier, I would prefer just to wait to get the Ragnarok spiders with flingers. The Ragnarok spiders with flingers, for me, it's overpowered units. It's so cool. You have an artillery piece, very effective, that it's hard to dodge for the enemy, and at the same time, then when you finish your ammunition or even before, you have an anti-large monsters that can while after dealing the damage as artillery, it can protect your flank or your rear guard as a monster, as anti-large monsters against cavalry, beasts and so on. So I just love it. And then the blue, it's a weird color, but I can appreciate it. Then later than that we have the giants. The giant is another very specific unit because it's strong, it's a very big tier, but it's very fragile because against any kind of missile power it can go down very easily, very fast. But if there are no missile units in your enemy army, it's perfect because you can just be there, and it's very strong against character. Some of us don't expect that, but it's very strong against character. Against ogre is wonderful. It's just wonderful against the ogre kingdoms, and I love this unit. But yes, if you're playing against, I don't know, dwarves, empires, Kislev, Cathay, I mean, it's useless. So a B tier is enough because in the specific situation is the best unit, but in other situation is just useless. You have to keep it, behind all your army to not take damage, even because with high difficulty it will be prioritized. Then we have the Rogue Idol. This is for me a C tier unit. I will explain you why. It's probably one of the strongest and the most expensive monsters in the game, and it's too expensive for what it does. It's a good tank if your point is just to absorb damage from infantry, cavalry, and so not missile powers, because even with that it's not that strong. He has a bigger armor, far bigger armor than the giants, but starting to losing hit points, the armor goes down, and it will be very less armored, and at that point even the weakest archers can put it down. And then it's, oh my god, it's so slow, and it's so slow that at some point it tried to charge and to hit an enemy infantry, but the enemy infantry managed to escape, and it just falls on the ground while dealing no damage. Probably it's good only against like vampire counts, so you can put this big dude and to deal against all the skeletons and zombies. He will have a bigger area where using its splash attack, but beyond that, I mean, it's more dangerous for you than for your enemy. And yeah, for that price, I mean, there are so many better options in this roster. I hope you enjoyed the video. Tell me if you like this format. I know there are many I mean, I made many things wrongs. Wrong. I know I have to split the categories in a better way, but yeah, except that it's 2 hours I'm recording because I'm doing a lot of mistakes, but I hope you enjoyed. So don't forget to subscribe, and let's see very soon.